Hi, everyone. It's AJ here, and we are going live. And I am just trying to set up my Instagram so that I can test this, how this Instagram live works too. All right, so it is now going live. And hello, everyone. I am live to you from, let me hide that. There you go. I am live to you from my wonderful home office. And today I want to talk about dealing with uncertainty and change. And so this may seem a little bit different if you're following me on Facebook versus Instagram versus YouTube, because the Instagram feed is actually separate. So that's on my phone right here. And then I have the rest of the feed. And so people who are on Facebook and YouTube are going to be seeing some banners and some tips and, some sort of scrolling stuff. Instagram users will not be able to see that. So I'm just testing this little quirk out because why not, right? Dealing with uncertainty and change. I'm not certain how this is going to turn out, but let's see how it turns out. And that's actually what I want to talk to you about today is, what I learned about dealing with uncertainty and change as an immigrant young little girl who migrated to the US when she was 14 and went through puberty and culture shock at the same time. And also as a two-time traumatic brain injury survivor whose life didn't make sense to her. And as, somebody who's a real minority in her field. And how did I deal with all the uncertainty and change? And what are some things that we can start thinking about as well? I'm going to turn the chat on. Hey, Michelle, how are you? I'm currently live on Facebook, LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So this is I'm so excited about this. Thank you for joining, Michelle. But yeah, let's continue. So why did I want to start off with why did I want to do this live? One reason is because I really did want to connect virtually because I miss you guys and I miss social connection. There's no doubt about it, which is really weird for me to say because I'm not a very people-y person. For those who know me, yes, I am a coach, and yes, I hold space for other people, but I don't do small talk. There's very few things I like to talk about. When I do want to talk about something, I get super excited and I just go into it. And just a lot of other, a lot of factors. But I even still feel the disconnect. I still feel the effects of the social isolation, especially because we're past week 3 at this point. And so it's like, oh my gosh, and I think that's something that we're all uncertain about, right? Because we are all certain we are going to get through this. We are all certain that this is going to end. But when? When is this COVID-19 crisis, pandemic, hot mess gonna end? Nobody knows the answer to that. So that's one of the things I want to touch on today. I also wanted to continue on from my previous session, which was the test run, which did not happen on Instagram, but on the other platforms it did. So I wanted to kind of create that continuity and to just let you guys know that through this crisis and after it, but especially through this crisis, if there is anything that I can do to help you, if there's anything that I can do to support support you, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, my information is ticking right on the bottom of the screen. And if you're on Instagram, then just DM me, don't hesitate to reach out. This is not a time where any of us has to feel like we're going through this alone. We're not. All of us are experiencing a whole lot of things because we're going through collective trauma. And it's important that we acknowledge that. It's important that we appreciate what that means, but we also appreciate what we want to do with it, even if that means doing nothing. That's still an action, just appreciating all of that. I think this is an incredible opportunity. So that was the second reason why I wanted to do this talk, this little live stream on dealing with uncertainty and change. And so why this topic, right? That's something I want to briefly touch on. So I do have a client right now. She might be watching this. I'm not sure. She's actually doing a workshop on this tomorrow. I can't name the client for confidentiality purposes, but what I want this client to know is she really knows what she's doing, but it was that fear of uncertainty that created the lack of confidence when really all she did, the bare minimum she had to do was just lean into herself, and she created so much clarity, and she found the clarity that she needed. So to this client, thank you. You inspired this, because this is the topic that the client is speaking on tomorrow. And we went into such an amazing conversation about this that it really did inspire this live. So thank you to the client. And also, when we talk about dealing with uncertainty and change, have you looked around lately? Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on. There is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of change. Many of us are not expecting a lot of this change because we don't know it's coming. There's been a lack of reasonable expectation of communications from leadership, and there's just been all of these things going on. One day we were told masks don't work. The other day we were told, oh, make sure you wear your masks. One day we were told we had 1 million tests, and the next day we were told, oh yeah, no, there's only like 600 or whatever. Either way, we are going through a time of extreme uncertainty and extreme change with zero expectations about it. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. And, really it's because when you think about uncertainty and this crisis and the change that's happening, right? A lot of us are focused on the macro levels of the economy, the jobs, what's going to happen whenever it's going to happen. A lot of us are also focused on how we're going to live, our financial realities, where we're going to find clients, all of that. But that uncertainty and that change actually creates changes within us. And I mean neurochemically, and in some ways behaviorally, right? Because there are so many things that are happening in terms of the hormones and the other neurotransmitters and the other chemicals in our body that are affected by this change and by the stress of this change. So what does that mean for all of us in terms of who we need to be to move forward, right? That's where I come in. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm not a clinician. But what I am is a trained social psychologist, and a coach. So today I want to talk to you about what can we expect from group dynamics? How does it affect the individual? And what does that mean in terms of the sort of things that at least helped me to think about? Whether they help you or not, that's on you. I can't make that decision. But what are the things that could help you get through this dealing with uncertainty and change? Because the bottom line is we're going to get through the uncertainty. We're going to change. Uncertainty is only one of the only constants in our lives. Change is one of the only constants in our lives. In fact, I have a neat little banner for those who are on Facebook and Instagram. Right here. It's by Ursula K. Le Guin. And the quote goes, "The only thing that makes life possible is permanent, intolerable uncertainty, not knowing what comes next." That's the reality, right? We never know what's coming next. And truly speaking, if we think about it, think about all the things we're uncertain of. Life, death, love, belongingness, trust, joy, power, wealth, health, people believing in us, parenting. Raise the hands. How many parents are not sure that they're the most amazing parent of the year type of parents? And there's a lot of self-doubt and we're just doing the best. Right here, every day. But also marriage, same thing, right here, every day. And for me personally, religion. And I don't mean a belief in a higher power. I mean prescribed religion. That's me personally. So these are all the things that we're really uncertain about in our lives. And as Brene Brown so aptly said, here's the problem that I see with it. When we are uncertain, it actually is a vulnerability. And somehow we're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of the risk. We're afraid of the emotional exposure. And it's, when we are uncomfortable, when we are, oh, hey, We Rise Therapy. So glad you're on here. When we are vulnerable and when we are exposed, we try to make things certain and definite and black or white or with, no gray areas. And instead of leaning into that vulnerability, because vulnerability is discomfort. And that's specifically what I want to talk to you about. So here's what my experience with uncertainty has been, right? My biggest experience has been when I went through my second traumatic brain injury and came back from that. And all of a sudden, people were expecting me to bounce back to normal. And I'm like, okay, well, great. What's normal? I don't know what that means. So it was incredibly weird for me to go through that phase and say, what are people even talking about? And my traumatic brain injury, the second one, happened in 2009, January of 2009. So we were also going through that 2008, 2009 financial crisis. And I was a graduate student. I had declared my doctoral candidacy 2 days before excuse me, I'm just getting my sip and learn. 2 days before I got into my accident. And so I really had no idea what I was walking into. It was complete uncertainty and complete change. I think my husband's deciding to join us on this live, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But I really didn't know what I was doing. And I really didn't, all I knew was people's expectations of me. And that created a lot of uncertainty, and it created a lot of fear, and it created a lot of self doubt, because I think that's what uncertainty does to us, right? Um, it sort of forces us into trying to immediately come up with solutions and fix the problem, instead of leaning into the discomfort and saying, why am I feeling uncomfortable? What can I learn from this moment? Um, what is the meaning of this moment? And how can I learn the meaning to leverage it in my future? Now, when I say this, I'm also saying this understanding that this is a privileged position to take, because for a lot of people, uncertainty right now is very real, in terms of the finances, or in terms of the lack of support, or in terms of being immunocompromised, or being a caregiver for somebody who's immunocompromised, and not knowing when this, COVID-19 mess is going to end. So I am being very privileged when I say that, for in accounting for all of those external uncertainties, there is also internal uncertainty. And that internal uncertainty then changes the trajectory of our actions and our behaviors, because it forces us to try and come up with solutions immediately, because it's urgent and it's immediate, instead of thinking about the meaning of it and how we can leverage it. Our brains are wired to work this way. So, whoops, that's the wrong one. Yeah, our brains are wired to work this way. So we all know that. But it also makes us risk aversive. And what I learned from my journey into uncertainty and change is that it was only when I leaned in into the discomfort. And it was only when, in spite of me not knowing when I was going to pay my monthly rent, me not knowing what my prognosis was. My prognosis was not that good after my traumatic brain injury. We didn't know what my potential was. We didn't know anything. I had multiple clots in my brain, and literally a couple of hours before surgery, they did a test and said, oh, the clot's cleared. That's how uncertain all of us were about my life and my prognosis in January of 2019. So coming from that place of uncertainty, going to a place where I ended up having adverse reactions to almost every medication known to mankind. So to this day, I can't take Tylenol. Yeah, that's a fun fact. We'll talk about that later. But all of this uncertainty, the one thing it's taught me is, no matter what the external factors are, the uncertainty is very real. It's never going to go away. But how I respond to it, that's on me. That's 100% on me. And what I mean by that is, am I going to continue seeing myself as a victim of my circumstances? Or am I going to try and find whatever agency, not control, agency I have over my life, and only focus on the parts that I have agency? The rest of the stuff, whatever, it's out of my control. It can deal with itself. But what I have agency on, what can I do about that? That's where my journey through uncertainty and change really began and transcended and evolved. I'm not going to say pivoted. That's being used too much lately. But, you know, you will be consistently called on to make decisions with limited information. All of us, whether we are leaders in titles and roles, leaders in our lives, people who don't think we're leaders but are aspiring leaders, it doesn't matter. All of us will be consistently called upon to make decisions with very limited information. Our goal in those cases should not be to get 100% of that information. Our goal in those cases must be to develop clarity in ourselves, right? And that's what I realized over my journey, was that the outside information didn't matter. It was when I had clarity on exactly what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, that's when I started becoming comfortable with uncertainty, to where it became a friend. I expect change at this point. So, one of the big things about that is really mindset, because your mindset, whether you think you are a victim of your circumstances or whether you think you are a malleable entity that can change, that can develop, your mindset is going to be a big part of your journey through uncertainty and change, because that's also going to bring up the topic of resilience. And I'm going to do a shameless plug in here. I'm not going to talk about resilience today because on April 15th, we are having a sip and learn. You know, it's like a lunch and learn, except with libations. It's a virtual happy hour where we're going to be talking about resilience and the impact of resilience. And my guest speaker is amazing PhD in neuroscience, NLC fellow from New York, Dr. Silka Iyengar. I'm so excited to shine the spotlight on her. So we're going to be having that. So I'm not going to go too much into mindset and resilience. But what I want to talk to you about today is really check in and say, this is what my journey with resilience has been. Hey, Ashley, how are you? For me to realize that the only way to deal with uncertainty and fear is to lean inward and to focus on myself, and to focus not on my control, but on what I have agency over, and to realize that uncertainty is built into every aspect of our lives as human beings. We're conditioned to make decisions in uncertainty. It's in the way our brains work. It's also in the way our society works. So are we going to just follow that script, or are we going to say, nope, I'm going to create my own script and I'm going to deal with uncertainty in my own way? That's what I did. That was a really roundabout way of saying that. I now realize that for future. But that's what it was. I stopped following all other scripts. I stopped caring about other people's ideas of productivity, of well-being, of what it means for me to thrive. I need to decide that, nobody else. It doesn't even make sense for anybody else to decide that for me. So I stopped following other people's scripts, and I said, what's going to happen if I create my own script? What's going to happen if I just want to follow my own path and see where that goes? What's the worst that could happen? I could fall flat on my face, right? Oh, wait, I've already done that many times before in my life. So, okay, let's figure it out. When you're painted into that corner, there's not that much you have to lose. So I started following my own script, and here I am 1 year later, doing live streams. I have my own TV show, and I'm serving in the most unimaginable amazing ways possible. And I'm really just grateful for every single client I have, every single friend I have. Um, and I still deal with uncertainty and change every single day. And that's okay because I know I'm going to be okay. So I don't know if anyone needed to hear that message in such a long way. But if you did, I'm glad you tuned in. I'd love to have a chat with you. My information is on the screen, so please feel free to reach out to me, subscribe to my YouTube channel or to the Facebook page or Instagram. And I'll be back next week with another topic. Bye.